I want winners. I want people that want to win.
All right, we have Mike Gilbert checking in with us, co-hosting for Roderick Adams, who is at the game tonight in Mexico City. If you were a part of our Facebook group, you saw all of his posts throughout the last couple days. He looks like he was having the time of his life. But Mike, you get to guest co-host on maybe the best game of the whole season for the 49ers.
Boy, did you pick a perfect week to ask me to do this, man. Because you've been following me on Twitter for a long time. And you know how I get during some of the 49ers games? I give up on them usually about the second quarter of every game, and then they win me back usually. So
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, none of that here, though. I mean, it was just all fun the whole time, a complete blowout. Loved it.
Yes. All right. So we're going to do our normal, we sort of take 3 topics and we kind of discuss them at length. We'll talk about our MVPs of the game, and then we'll look ahead to next week. But just because Mike mentioned it, let's start with the defense. I know 38 points. We should start with the offense. We're going to get there. But let's actually start with the defense here, because there was I can't remember the game. It may have been the Carolina game. But at some point on this podcast, I told Rod, I said, the 49ers have the best defense in the league. And we started talking about, we were like, based off of what's going on right now, I do think they have the best defense in the league. And then that week, I'm not saying that we were the originator of that idea, but you started to see that in the blogs and in the podcast, like, do the 49ers the best defense in the league? And then they started to play poorly. And you yourself on Twitter, you were like debunking the idea that the 49ers had the best defense in the league. And I took that as a personal shot. I'm like, okay, Mike is subtweeting me for saying that the 49ers. So explain, because I think that these last 3 weeks, we've actually seen them come back to what that point was that I made in being the best defense in the league, or one of them. But there was a couple of games where they weren't. That Falcons game where they were missing a bunch of starters and all that stuff. So, yeah, give me your thoughts on kind of how they've bounced back in your eyes. And I mean, maybe you still think that they're, maybe not as good as everyone thinks that they are.
No, so when I was saying that, it was during the Falcons game, whenever they had a lot of people out, but it's the Falcons, it's Marcus Mariota, right? So I was just like, even with all of the starters out, and like literally half the defense was injured, or half the starting defense was injured, but they were getting carved up by Marcus Mariota. They didn't even have Cordero Patterson during that game, so I was like, the best defense in the league doesn't do this, right? The best defense in the league is a little bit deeper than this, to where they could play. They should be able to stop a second-rate team, and they had no answer for the Atlanta Falcons of all people. So that was frustrating. And then I started to say it again in the Chiefs game when we did get some.
They got carved up in the Chiefs game.
Yeah,
absolutely,
we had some people back, and they got completely blown out by the Chiefs. They had no answers for them. Patrick Mahomes did whatever he wanted to do during that game. Kelsey did whatever he wanted to do during that game, and we had no answers for them. And so I was just like, the best defense in the league doesn't play like this. And we've seen good defenses do a lot better against the Chiefs than what the 49ers were able to do. Yes. So that's why I was saying that. Now, the last 3 games, something has awoken in these guys. Part of it, the teams that they're playing are not very good, like tonight. But also, I think a part of it, I think D'Amico Ryans felt a little bit challenged. And a couple weeks ago, they were getting beat up at halftime. And since that moment, they have not given up a single point in the second half in the last 3 games, right? Yeah. They've been starting off a little bit slow, and then they've just been coming back, doing well. Charvarius, I know everybody's going to want to talk Bosa. Bosa is obviously great all the time. Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward looks amazing. He looks fantastic. Hufanga looks awesome. The entire defense is just balling out right now. And then whenever they get Eric Armstead back from injury, if they get him back this season, I think you're looking at a next level defense. Now, with that said, do I think that they could still play against the teams like the Chiefs? I don't know. Teams like that always give the 49ers fits, even when they are the best in the league. They've never been able to play teams like that. These very fast, mobile quarterbacks, guys who move outside the pocket. They've had a lot of trouble with that in the past. And I still am very skeptical that they could actually hold up against those teams.
That team is problems for just about everybody, but in some instances, they do seem maybe a little bit less of the Superman offense. They wasted the 49ers, and they've wasted a couple other teams, but then they've sort of come back to earth in some instances. And you go, well, how come they didn't play as well against X team and they just ran it up against 49ers? I think it's an interesting thing because I think one, Andy Reid comes from the 49ers coaching tree, and he's it's kind of like homecoming for him. So he always wants to beat the 49ers, right? Going all the way back to Green Bay. Two, he's a brilliant schemer when it comes to getting guys open. And then, and Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator. So there's, he's helping there. And then when you have Pat Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the NFL, when he is able to get that ball out quick and when the pass rush maybe isn't there consistently, it's just carve me up time, right? And for the 49ers, Bosa is the only defensive line starter who's starting right now. All these other guys are hurt. Ebukam didn't play today. Like you said, Eric Armstead. So that was probably the perfect mixed cocktail for the Chiefs to beat up the 49ers. But at the same time, a lot of times for the 49ers, and we used to see it with Russ Wilson all the time, quarterback who can move his feet a little bit and buy himself an extra half of a second does pretty well. For whatever reason, the way this defensive scheme for the 49ers works, that is really their kryptonite, is that quarterback who can scamper a little bit. So the other thing about this defense that I'm kind of interested in getting your thoughts on, and Rod and I have been on this pretty much since the beginning, which is the NFL today is completely built around the offense. All the rules dictate are all offensive rules. Any sort of touching of a wide receiver, you're going to get a flag. And so the Niners will also give up plays to really, really physical, tall, and dominant wide receivers. And we saw that in the beginning of the game today with DeAndre Hopkins. I thought Hopkins was going to go for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Thankfully, the pass rush started to pick up, and thankfully also Colt McCoy's on the other side. So, he's a career backup. And that was not, they were not going to let that happen because he's just not good enough to beat them. Some people say, oh, what about last year? Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at that game. But the other worry, I guess, for me is that one quarterback who's got that dominant wide receiver and who's a lot bigger. The 49ers, Ward is a little bit of a bigger DB, but they usually have these small, shifty defensive backs. And do you see that as a possible problem down the line as we get through the rest of the regular season, which is still 7 more games for them?
Yeah, when Murray gets back, him and Hopkins are going to be a problem for the 49ers. And they always have trouble with Murray. But, I know that Hopkins had a lot of success tonight, but I think the 49ers were like, we're going to let we're going to let Hopkins do his thing underneath. We're just going to make sure that he's not going to go past a certain point, right? So we're going to give him these chunk yards underneath, but we're not going to let them run a single yard. We're going to cover everybody else. Ertz is out of the game, so we have no fear of the tight end. We have no fear of Dortch. We have no fear of anybody else. We're just going to let Hopkins do his thing, and we're going to make sure that we get a good pass rush and completely stop the run game. So I think they were more than willing to let Hopkins kind of run wild, because Hopkins always runs wild on them. So why should they, divert all their resources to just stopping him whenever they're like, we're just going to do our thing and play our game? That's why I think that's why they were so successful tonight. But yeah, there's, I look at Miami with Tua, and they don't have just one awesome wide receiver. They got 2, right? They got Jalen Waddle and they got Tyreek. And I think that's going to be a big problem for them. And like you said, that they do struggle against these big bodied receivers. Then you look forward, you got Tampa Bay, they got the big receivers over there. So that's going to be trouble that they're on the schedule later this year. So they do have the work cut out for them, but if they can get the offense to play up to the level that they played tonight and really the last couple of games to kind of match that effort that we're getting on defense, I think that we could be pretty successful.
Yeah, no, it's a good point about the upcoming teams, because on paper you'd kind of say, okay, well, the 49ers should probably win these games, especially being at home, but there are challenges in all three games coming, right? Because Kamara has not had that single really big Kamara game yet. I know, because he is on my fantasy team. The from a receiver standpoint, their big receiver is Olave. He's got 51 catches for 760 yards.
Thomas is out, right? Michael Thomas is out. Okay.
Yes. And so it may look a little similar to the Saints. The Saints gameplay may look a little similar to what the Cardinals were, which is one big time, one good receiver, and then Kamara out of the backfield. Their tight end has 47, has actually 31 catches. He's third on the team in catches. But I think the way that and we'll talk about this matchup a little bit more in at the end of this show. But this kind of team, I think the Niners can beat this kind of team. But more to your point, when there are multiple weapons, that's when it's going to be up to the offense to score, right? And so Shelvin mentioned that he had a solid game. Hopkins is special. Hopkins is special. He doesn't have that crazy speed, but you saw that catch on the sidelines where he kept the feet in, and it was this beautiful catch. So he's gonna get his, and like you said, he did for a little bit, but they only gave up 2.8 yards per carry. James Conner was seemingly frustrated all night. They tried these little trick plays with some screens and some reverses, and the one play with Dortch went for a good number. I think it almost went for 40 yards. But other than that, they kind of bottled that up too. So it was really Hopkins, and then they got some garbage yardage later in the game when the Niners were up by a bunch. But yeah, they can clearly beat teams like this who don't have that many weapons, and you can kind of single on, okay, we got to stop this person. And if we stop this person, then we win. And it seemed like they really, really targeted the run game. Like from the beginning of the game, it was like, we're going to let Colt go. We're going to see if he can beat us, because we're just going to be dead out stopping the run. And that's what they did. So that worked. It allowed them to play defensively. It allowed them to start to wear down the offense. And then you saw later in the game when the pass rush improved and such. And that's the way that they win. They just wear these other teams down with their style. So let's actually talk about a certain individual who is a very polarizing figure in the 49er community. You can't imagine who this person might be. I thought that was Jimmy G's best game of the season.
It's one of his best game as a professional football player ever. Yeah, because I know he didn't break the 300-yard marker. He didn't have to come from behind or anything like that, but he was flawless tonight. He was absolutely flawless. He didn't really make that many mistakes. I know that I think his stat line where he was, and you might be able to correct me on this, 20 for 28 for 230 yards almost.
20 for 29, 228. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right there.
And 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, right? And some of those incompletions, there's a couple where he took a shot at it, and then there were others that he threw it away. So if you take those into effect, I mean, he had a damn near perfect game. The anti-Jimmy game is what we should call this, because he's usually got at least 1 or 2 big mistakes that makes you just think this is exactly why Trey Lance was drafted, is because of this crap right here. We didn't see any of that tonight. The guy just and kudos to the offensive line. I don't think Mike McGlinchey's name was uttered once.
That's honestly a good thing, right?
Yeah. If you're not talking about Mike McGlinchey at all, that means that he had a really good game. Trent Williams is on fire, obviously. I think the offensive line just played amazingly. They kept J.J. Watt at bay the whole game. And the Cardinals defense isn't very good anyway, so that helped. But he was getting his third, fourth reads, right? Getting his checkdowns. Christian McCaffrey was balling his ass off, and so was George Kittle. I mean, he was outstanding tonight. You got to give him his flowers.
The thing that what you were saying is those 1 or 2 throws per game. Rod and I call them Jimmy throws. You're just waiting for that one throw under pressure, off the back foot, where he's just trying to eke out a first down that is not there. And thankfully, because of the pass rush, because of the 49ers ability to control the pass rush, because there were 0 sacks on Garoppolo tonight.
Mm-hmm.
He was not under pressure. He had one throw where he kind of almost did it, and it was I think it was the one that Wyatt blocked on. It was like a second and long or something. And I was like, "Oop, that was as close as we're gonna get here, or are we gonna get another one?" But he was perfect. And so here's my question to you, because to me, the difference with Garoppolo is mostly two things. And the first thing I think is very clear. He has a guy who he knows in the back of his mind, if my first and second read is not there, Christian is there. Mm-hmm. So he's not worried about forcing it into these tight windows to Deebo or to Ayuk or to Kittle, because he knows in the back of his mind, okay, nope, not there. Nope, not there. I know Christian's going to get open. And if Christian's not open, then you just throw it away, right?
Yep.
And so he's been doing that much better these last 3 games. The ability to just go, and we call this the Alex Smith. The ability to go, it's not there. It's 3rd and long. We'll fight. We'll live to see another day, and let's just throw it away. Because in previous situations, that could turn into a pick, that could turn into a sack fumble, and then it's just the momentum and stuff. If you believe in that stuff, kind of changes. So those are my 2 things that I think are different with Garoppolo this year than previous Garoppolo. Extra weapon, but specifically a safety valve that he knows is dependable. He just needs to get it there. And this dude could be, I don't know what the size difference is, but I feel like if the 49ers wanted to, he could just be Cooper Kupp, if their Cooper Kupp, because he's so good catching the ball in the backfield. And it doesn't take him very long to catch and then get to that top shifty speed that he has. It's just amazing to watch that dude play. But what are your thoughts on the differences or the changes in what you've seen, being that we've now been watching Jimmy Garoppolo since 2017? So that's a long time.
Yeah. And Jimmy is what he's going to be. Like, I think we've seen the best of him. I don't think he's going to get any better than he is right now. But what you can do is improve the weapons around him. And that's what the 49ers have done, right? Not only does he have a safety valve there, Christian McCaffrey, but what he's going to do is then draw another defender away from Brandon Ayuk and away from Deebo and away from Kittle. He's going to draw more attention away from those guys. So now those guys are going to get more open. And when they aren't open, you can always trust that McCaffrey's going to be there waiting. And on top of that, you got Elijah Mitchell back.
Yeah.
Like he was the top running back all last year. He actually, the last 2 games has more running yards than McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And so,
we'll make that our 3rd topic. So
yeah,
we'll hit on those guys together. This pairing that you're talking about.
The group. Yeah. So, you have McCaffrey as a weapon. And I think this, and I've been trying to think back, and during the game, it really hit me. I was like, is Christian McCaffrey the best midseason trade that the 49ers have ever made? And I know we've only had him for 3 games, but it seems right now that this is probably the best in history, certainly for the Lynch era. I mean, we got Emmanuel Sanders, right, a couple years ago. That was a great one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another midseason trade that we were able to get that's better than McCaffrey, and I just can't think of anything off the top of my head, even going back to the Montana years.
So there are, I think, there could be something between, the last 10 or 15 years that I'm not thinking about. But I think the one that most old school 49er fans would talk about is the 49ers trading for Fred Dean right before, I think it was it the 81 season, mid-season or something? He was not happy in San Diego, I believe, and they traded him. Rick Feinberg, who is watching, he may, because he knows those
local
eras.
Historian, Rick.
Yeah, he knows those eras really well. But that's off the top of my head. That's what I'm thinking about. But the one that I know this wasn't a trade. The one that kind of, it's a little bit different because it was this bidding war between the 49ers and the Cowboys. But in 94, when they signed Dion and they brought him in, I don't know what game it was, like, a few games into the season, and just like the jolt that he gave that defense and the swagger and the confidence, it's almost like that's what Christian has given to this offense is, oh, we don't have to be, we don't have to only be this running team who wants to run 35 times a game, though that is where we are probably still at our best. We can actually be a little bit more dynamic. Okay, so here's my next question for you, which is, I would imagine as we get closer to the playoffs, some of these defenses are going to be keying on McCaffrey out of the backfield, right? More of us, having a linebacker kind of sit back and spy him because they know that has been Jimmy's go-to, his safety valve. I know that Kyle knows, okay, when they start doing that a little bit more, and I haven't been watching closely enough to see if they were even trying to do that tonight. Christian just seemed open on every play.
Yeah.
But Kyle, being the brilliant offensive mind that he is as far as scheming guys open. Now, you may not agree with kind of the way that sometimes the Niners can't punch touchdowns in, but my thought is like, oh, Kyle's like, okay, so you're going to keep that linebacker steady. Now we're going to attack the parts of the field where that linebacker is supposed to be based on what we're doing. So there's going to be this nice chess game that we're going to see. And I hope that Jimmy is he's going to be efficient enough, he's going to be accurate enough to take advantage of those opportunities when the team is cheating a little bit more towards Christian. Do you believe that this version of Jimmy that you're seeing is going to be able to hit Deebo and Kittle a little bit more than he has? Kittle's big game today, but still Deebo, Deebo hasn't really been Deebo as a wide receiver yet this season, I don't think.
No, he hasn't. To say that anything about Deebo has been disappointing, it would be kind of silly at this point. But Ayuk is the number one receiver on the team right now. Right. He's got the most catches and the most yards, and I think the most touchdowns as a receiver. So, but I do think, and I think was the brilliance of bringing McCaffrey over, is because once they realize they just can't leave him open, they're going to allocate more resources to him. And then you're going to get more over the middle with Deebo. George Kittle is going to get not only over the middle, he's going to go deep, right? And then you're going to forget about Kyle Juszczyk, who can also catch out of the backfield. So you got all these things going on all at once, and he has all these toys at his disposal. Do I think Jimmy is smart enough and accurate enough to take advantage of them? Sometimes I question whether or not he's smart enough because he does make some dumb mistakes. But I do think one of the things that he is good at is reading defenses and knowing when someone's going to be getting open. And Kyle is good enough to have a scheme where he's like, look, I think this guy is going to bite on this, so we're going to go this way over here. And that's kind of what the defense is all about, misdirection, right? Just making you think they're going to do this, and then they're going to do this. And then at the same time, they can bring it back, and then now we're going to run it down your throat. We're going to just line up right behind Trent Williams, and we're going to push it down your throat. So they have all of these different things. If the 49ers had Aaron Rodgers, they'd be unstoppable, right? So that's
maybe not this version of Aaron
maybe Rodgers. Not this, but the version from a couple of years ago. If they had him, they'd be unstoppable. But they don't. They got Jimmy, and he's the best that we got right now. And I think that he's been doing a hell of a job the last few weeks, and it's really been since Christian McCaffrey came on board. He's really added a layer to Jimmy's game. He's making Jimmy a better quarterback than he has been before, which is crazy.
So I was looking through the mid-season trades. I actually don't think Fred Dean was a mid-season trade now. Now the one that we didn't mention, Garoppolo was a mid-season trade, right? He was a mid-season trade. Yeah. So I couldn't figure out really when Fred Dean was traded for. It may have been in the offseason as the Niners were kind of stacking up guys because they
and I think Matt Millen wasn't a mid-season guy? Didn't he might maybe not on a trade, but I think he was a mid-season free agent.
I think he may have been like a plan B free agent. Do you remember? You may be even too young for this, but it would have been 19 91, the NFL had a plan B free agent. Like the Niners had to basically put a bunch of guys on like their roster. And then if they didn't put certain guys on their roster, those guys could leave even if they had contracts. And like, that's how Roger Craig ended up in the Raiders. Ronnie Lott ended up with the Raiders. It was this plan B. I kind of wonder if Matt Millian was that, but there's not a great way to look this stuff up in the internet, at least that I've found yet. So maybe there's a secret website that will help.
I'll have to pull up my my championship season DVDs and then find a DVD player, because I don't have one anymore, but I do have the box set of all their Super Bowls. So
yes,
maybe I'll have to pull those out and see what happened.
I know they've those. That was kind of how I learned football history, was all of that stuff when it was on ESPN, like the early days of ESPN in like the early 80s. It was just all like old NFL film stuff and football follies. And that's how I learned a lot of the history. Okay. So Billy said that BA is the best route runner in NFL, hands down. Let's talk about him for a second. Brandon Ayuk, we have been waiting for him to explode. Now, I think the idea was he was going to be their number one guy, but then Deebo, who was I think Deebo was a second round pick and Ayuk was a first round pick. Deebo jumped up these last couple of years to be the guy, but Ayuk is showing why he was that number one pick. And it was a pick that I think a lot of people kind of scratched their heads about. There were some people who didn't think Ayuk was even a first round guy, but Kyle did, and he went after him. And now he's shown that, okay, this is why you got this guy. He's so much tougher of a guy than I realized, because he's not going down the sidelines and kind of going deep on guys. He's going over the middle. It's like slants and it's posts and it's crosses, and he's taking hits, right? He's taking hits in that middle of the field, and he's slick. He's very slick in that he doesn't really get hit like directly like some of these other guys get hit sometimes over the middle, but much tougher than I realized. And I think he's really showing off his hands this year. His hands have been really excellent. Sometimes Jimmy will miss on a pass and you'll see like a one hand go out and that's a drop on the receiver. But he's been excellent this year. And finally, it's kind of like, yes, all of those of us who believed in Ayuk, now we're happy to see that. And I think this is just my opinion. I've mentioned it. I've mentioned it in the last couple shows, is there's a chemistry thing between the two of them where the timing, like, because Jimmy will throw behind on certain routes, and you're like, oh, that was a 10-yard play, but it could have been like a 30-yard play if he hits him in stride. For whatever reason, he hits Ayuk in stride, and this guy is getting an extra 5 and 7 and 8 yards because it's like he doesn't have to slow down to catch the ball. For whatever reason, him and Jimmy have this great timing, and it's great to see.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that Jimmy was able to do in 2017, I thought, is he had this ability to throw people open. Like, he could predict where the guy was going to be. And after getting beat up a little bit, I think he lost a little bit of that, and I think Kyle lost trust in him. But he seems to have gained that back a little bit with Ayuk specifically. Now with Deebo, he just kind of throws it in Deebo's general direction. And he just kind of hopes he gets it. And he does the same thing with Kittle. And he did with the Kittle's the first touchdown with Kittle. Yeah. That was not a good throw. It was a very athletic move to get himself open and to scramble, but the throw was not really on target. Just nobody happened to be behind Kittle, so he was able to score. But with Ayuk, I think as our friend Billy pointed out, he's such a great route runner. Like, that's his specialty. Jimmy can predict where Ayuk's going to be because he knows the route. Now with Deebo, maybe that's not the case with Deebo, because Deebo is just more of a dynamic athlete, and he likes to do his thing, and Jimmy will throw it to him when he's open, and then he'll just take the ball and go crazy with it. And the same thing with Kittle, but it's a little bit different with Ayuk, because Ayuk is he's a technician, right? He is a professional wide receiver.
Yes,
that's the way I see Ayuk. Now he is shown his hands have gotten better this year, but he has dropped some pretty big passes. Specifically last week, he dropped the touchdown pass that
he did.
That was a really good pass by Jimmy, I thought, and he dropped it. So, but other than that, for the most part, he's had a tremendous season. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's got the rest of the year.
So I guess we have to bring this up because you do a professional wrestling podcast called Brace for Impact on the Fight Game Media Network. And I think everyone knows that I do some wrestling stuff myself as well. And one George Kittle, who I've never heard another American wrestling fan say that his favorite wrestler was Pentagon. But George Kittle's favorite wrestler is Pentagon. And I had posted in one of our groups earlier this week saying, oh, I wonder if Pentagon will actually be on television because of this, because of Kittle's fandom. And lo and behold, before the game started, they go into they go and kind of hang out and shake hands, and he gives Kittle a mask, and then Kittle scores that first touchdown, and there's Pentagon on Monday Night Football just hanging out. Now, it didn't say AEW wrestler or AAA wrestler. It just said Pentagon or his current AEW name. But that was pretty cool. I actually liked, that they didn't shy away from it. They didn't make fun of it, which back in the day, they may have made fun of it. But, Kittle bringing a little bit of like, that athlete crossover thing. And it kind of makes me wonder, we do have a pay-per-view for AEW coming out to the Bay Area in March. I wonder if Kittle will do something, to take advantage of that. I don't know if Tony Khan, who's the guy who runs AEW, will take advantage of George Kittle being friends with Pentagon. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, and George Kittle goes to all the WWE shows that are there.
When I went to Raw, he was there. He showed up. It was him and Hufanga together, and they stayed for about. I would say they stayed for about. They got there a little bit late, then stayed for maybe like an hour or so, and then they did stuff in the back because then they did all the social media for WWE. So yeah, he was there. I've been to 2 different shows where he was there. There was a pay-per-view. I think it was the TLC pay-per-view, like 2018 or something. And he showed up in the crowd after a game. Like they'd just played the game and they won. And then he showed up. And I think he even cut the press conference short. He's like, I got to go to the pay-per-view.
Well, he was like, you guys, I'm trying to get to the pay-per-view. You guys are really killing me right now. I remember that. So, no, you bring up Pentagon. We called him Pentagon Jr. back in the day. That's what I know him as.
Yes.
But in 2017, he was coming to the Bay Area a lot. So we need to ask our friend John LaRocca and Marcus Mack, who were booking those shows in San Francisco. I wonder if Kittle was at those shows because he was around during that time. And I certainly went to those shows, and I went because Pentagon was my favorite wrestler. And Pentagon went on to sign with Impact Wrestling, became their champion. And then shortly after that, I started working for you with the Impact podcast. So there you go.
go.
I thought that was really cool. He's been to the games before, but this was the first time that I think that he was really featured during the game. They went out of their way. He presented Kittle a Lucha Libre mask, and I thought that was really cool. And I'm sure Tony Khan, who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, by the way, is probably going to try and get that footage and show that on AEW Dynamite this week. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, Joe Buck doing the pronunciation of. Yeah, he did it a couple different ways.
Yeah, called him Penta El Cero Miedo, right? That's what he's going by now. So
yeah. Okay, so let's talk about our third point here. Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell bring the 1-2 punch. Now, the way that they did this, and this has been the last 2 weeks, mostly last week was a little bit different, but Christian was really the main running back in the first half. And then when the defense kind of softened and got a little tired, then Elijah Mitchell was the number 1 running back in the second half. And then when he got tired, they were more or less going to pass because then you're bringing CMC back in the game. But you had asked me, or you had kind of made a point before we started saying, what should we compare this to? So I'll let you go first to compare it, a famous 49ers backfield, and then I'll have my own comparison as well.
Well, I think Rick Feinberg will get a kick out of this, but I was thinking like, who to compare him to, and I'm like, it's the $1 million backfield. Except for now with inflation, it's probably the $1 billion backfield. But but in 1954, the $1 million backfield was Y.A. Tittle, Hugh McElhenney, John Henry Johnson, and fullback Hall of Famer, I believe, Joe Perry,
Joe the Jet.
Joe the Jet Perry. Yeah, they were a big time backfield. I don't know that I'd add Jimmy's name to that, but if you take a look at, you got CMC, Elijah Mitchell, and then you put Deebo Samuel back there as that trio there.
Yeah.
I mean, what's a better three running backs in the entire league than that? I don't think that. I think that might be the best like trio of runners on any football team in history. I'm sure somebody's going to do some research and say, maybe Otto Graham had better running backs or something in the 1940s.
Yeah, you might get a well actually or something.
I'm sure, but I've been watching. I'm 39 now. I've been watching football since like birth. At this point, I don't think that I've ever seen a running back core this good before. And then if they didn't trade away Jeff Wilson, it's like, come on, it's over. Debate's not even started. Yeah, but they traded Jeff, and he was a great player here for a long time. But I think with Mitchell and CMC and Deebo Samuel, it's insanity. And then Kyle Juszczyk can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's not going to run, but the guy is a hell of a blocker, right? He's one of the best, probably the best fullback in all of football. He's definitely the highest paid. So he's in the Pro Bowl every year. So come on, it's insanity what they got going on back there.
Yeah, there might only be like 5 actual fullbacks in the NFL, but it works for the 49ers offense. So don't forget about quarterback sneak Jimmy. That's the best version of Jimmy for me is quarterback sneak Jimmy. This guy never gets stopped on a quarterback sneak, though. I think last week he missed on one, but then he got it on the next one.
He got another tonight. I think it was a 3rd and 1 tonight, and I think he got like 3 or 4 yards out of it. So he did great.
So okay, here's my comparison. 1984 Super Bowl team. Niners go 15-1. Wendell Tyler is their actual tailback. Who is their fullback? None other than Roger Craig. And so it's not exactly the same style. It's not, we're going to go to Wendell and then we're going to go to Roger. It was, Wendell Tyler was more so the main back. He had he had some fumbling issues as a player, but I think he probably got 12 or 1,300 yards that season, maybe even a little bit more. And Craig was very early in his career. I think he would have only been in his 2nd year in the league, maybe second or third year in the league. But he was the fullback. And the thing about it is, like, even though he was not the number 1 back, they were very comfortable giving him the ball. They were very comfortable throwing him the ball. I think Tyler leaves. I think Tyler may have stayed one more year, and then 86 it becomes Craig, and Craig just becomes the number 1 tailback, and he's catching 100 balls and rushing for 1,000 and receiving for 1,000. He's the first back to do that. So the talent in that backfield, Tyler was the veteran. He was a little bit older, and they relied on him in 84 for that. But yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of, which is you just have 2 guys who are of such high level talent. Now, Mitchell is still very young, right? So he has not shown the ability to stay healthy for a full season. He got hurt last year, got hurt this year. So that's my worry, because you mentioned Jeff Wilson, and that was the reason why I kind of wanted to hang on to Jeff Wilson. It's like, well, what if Mitchell gets hurt again? Like, we need that guy. But if they stay healthy, gosh, what a great thing. And like the CMC thing, that's what everyone talks about, right? Oh, they just got CMC. He's one of the best. He's one of the best offensive players in football. But what they didn't remember is how well Mitchell played last year. Mitchell, when he was healthy, he played really well last year, because remember, they drafted Trey Sermon to be their guy, or at least to have the best shot to be their guy. And it turned out that the guy who they drafted later than Trey Sermon was the better player. And I don't even know. I think Trey Sermon got picked up by the Eagles or something. I don't even know if he's on a roster or whatever. But
he might be on a practice squad somewhere. I have no idea. I didn't know that he even got picked up. Yeah.
So that is kind of how I look at it, which is everyone's focused on Christian, yet Elijah's like the guy who comes in with the fresh legs and a tired defense, and he's just putting his head down and running through these guys. and it was great to watch. I was like, wow, like it's crazy how and we can kind of there was a Mostert in the Super Bowl year. It was Mostert, and then they had another back who was pretty fast. I mean, Wilson was in that mix too. But that that's what Kyle would do very well. It's like, okay, running back for this series runs hard, and then the next series you got a fresh running back who's got fresh legs and he's running hard, and then you just keep going back and forth. And man, the times when they have both guys in the game, I'm trying to guess. I'm like, okay, are they trying to set the team up to think that it's going to be Mitchell just so that they could throw to Christian, or is Christian the decoy and they're going to run, like, it's just, I'm like giddy in my confusion, knowing that those options are there.
It's crazy, the options. And what I keep waiting for, and this is like my dream scenario, I want to see Christian, Deebo, and Elijah all in the backfield, all in one play. I just to, maybe when they're up by like 15, 20, or maybe like 21 points, maybe they're up by a few touchdowns. I just want to see what would happen. I don't know that it's going to be awesome. I just believe it's going to be awesome. But Mitchell had a heck of a game. Look, 9 carries for 59 yards, 6.6 average, which is insanity. And such great production. They had 159 yards rushing. Of course, Deebo had that super long run there.
Yes,
for the touchdown,
39 yards.
Well, it said he was 3 for 37. Oh, he got a couple of negative.
He got a couple of negative yards.
Yeah, got a couple of negative, and then so it's a tremendous backfield, man. I work with a Browns fan, right? And I don't know if you guys have ever had a friend that's a Browns fan. It's pretty depressing to have a friend that's a Browns fan. But he was like, well, what about Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb? And I was like, that is a hell of a 1-2 punch.
It is.
But they don't have Deebo, right? So we got 3. We got 3 guys that we can go to. And Kareem Hunt doesn't even want to play for the Browns. So I'm going to take our backs over Cleveland's backs.
So Christian, the 49ers have 7 games. They are currently 6-4, so they have 7 more regular season games. They're going to have to up Christian's activity to get to 1,000 yards rushing. I don't even think that's really a goal, but he's at 563 right now, projected to just get over 1,000. But if the Niners are in good shape postseason wise, hopefully not jinxing anything, maybe he sits out a game or 2 or whatever just to save his legs. But he's also got 47 catches for 395 yards. And the way that they're using him right now, I don't think it's impossible for him to get 90 catches this year, which would be kind of crazy because but it's just the way that Jimmy uses him. Jimmy is just so comfortable throwing it to him in the backfield like the back of his hand. He just knows that he's he just knows that he's there. He knows that he's ready. And so Mookow 1980 says, put them all in, run the wing T for a play just for the heck of it. They could do that. Fun. They could do that. They could definitely do that. There's options there for trick plays and stuff, and or you just it's like 4th and 1, and you're not sure if you're going to go for it, and you put that backfield in the game, and then the other team's got to call a timeout. Just so they got to burn a timeout just because I've never seen this formation before from the 49ers. All right, so let's get to it. Our player of the game, Niners win 38-10. So there's lots of heroes in a game like this, and I'll let you go first for who you think is the player of the game for the 49ers.
I'm always tough on this guy, but how can you say anybody other? Well, a lot of people had a lot of great games, but Jimmy Garoppolo, 20 for 29, threw 4 touchdowns. I know George Kittle basically got that touchdown on his own, but 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He kept the team in it the whole game. He made all the right decisions, all the right calls, threw great passes the whole game, made little to no mistakes. And plus I was wearing his jersey tonight.
There you go.
If you guys can see. Yeah, I'm wearing his jersey tonight. And before the game, brother is handsome, like unbelievably handsome.
What do you think about the salt and pepper though?
I dug it. I'm just like, look, this guy's the George Clooney of football. He gets older and he's getting better looking. Honestly, I kind of hate him for it, and I think that he gets handsome shamed a lot, and that's never something that's been a problem for me.
Okay,
So,
here's a question. Here's a question about, and this will be the last question about Jimmy's handsomeness. Okay. Do you think it's weird that Jimmy's gone just full, like Jimmy's a young man still. He's not that old. It's just he's got the gray. But he has leaned into the salt and pepper, right?
Oh, yeah.
As a young man. And as a 45-year-old dude, Tom Brady is like still coloring his hair. Like he's still he cannot lean into that salt and pepper. I don't know what that says, but I wonder if Jimmy's like, I don't want to be like Tom. I'm going to lean into the salt and pepper.
You know what? He's got a beautiful head of lettuce, right? And he wants to be all natural. And I got to respect that. There's nothing fake about Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think that's what he's trying to portray.
It was kind of cold-blooded that I saw a video. So Jimmy walking to the stadium, he's in like this like salmon suit, no tie. And then they showed Colt McCoy right after. He's like wearing a polo shirt, like just hanging out. And I was like, that's not fair. Come on.
No.
He looked do that to Colt.
Yeah, he looked like he was getting ready to go play, 9 holes on a Sunday morning, right? Yeah.
All right, so you're going Jimmy. Now, we have not chosen Jimmy all season long.
He hasn't deserved it, by the way, not until tonight.
So Shelvin is going McGlinchey. I mean, I think you can go offensive line as a unit, right? Like the offensive line was excellent, both in the run game and the pass game. Some of that was, the Cardinals have their problems, but I like that call by Shelvin. I was also looking at Mooney Ward. Now he was on Hopkins a lot, so there's a few catches on him, but he was hitting tonight. Like, oh my gosh, like he had some big hits, some big great tackles. From a tackling perspective, I thought that was his best game. Bosa did get a sack. He also got a roughing the passer where he's
he deserved that one, but it was also, Colt was doing his best LeBron impression, but kudos to him. Yeah.
Fred Warner, I thought, had a really strong game. And I like Fred Warner because he's like the guy who's like the intense fire up the team kind of guy. And, whenever they make a big play, your eyes go to him because he's all over the field. And you could also go on the offense, you could go George Kittle. Like you could say this is Kittle's best game, 2 touchdowns. I'm also going to go Jimmy Garoppolo, though. I think his calmness, like I don't necessarily think of calmness in the pocket when I think of Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I don't see that as a strength of his, because when he makes those Jimmy throws, it is often not a calm version of him. But he was calm and he got rid of the ball. He didn't hold on to it too long. Just everything was perfect. The game plan was great for them. They knew where Arizona was hurting, which is pretty much on a lot of the defense, and they just attacked it. And it's like just Jimmy was a robot tonight, and like I like that version of Jimmy. Like go do your job, hit the open guys, keep the chains moving, and I think we got to credit him for that. So I'm going Jimmy too. So I think Rod will be very not happy. Rod will probably chuckle that we picked Jimmy as player of the game, but I think it's the right pick. Okay, got a few minutes left. 49ers versus the Saints on Sunday at home, but on a short week. They because they played on Monday night, they have one less day to sort of rest. This is a team that is heavily injured, right? They're still missing guys. They're still missing a lot of their defensive line. I think I didn't see the injury report after the game, but I think Jimmy Ward had something going on. We saw Deebo with the Theragun on his calf, which looked cramp related. So
and that's what Jimmy Ward's looked like. Jimmy Ward looked like he had a cramp too. And I think that, altitude probably played a factor in that. I think Arizona, a lot of their guys went down in a similar fashion. So now I think they're going to be okay, but I also have not seen the injury report.
And so, there could be a couple problems there. I think Greenlaw got his hand crunched in between a helmet and like maybe 2 helmets on a tackle or something, but his hand kind of got caught on a tackle on a collision. He had to come out of the game. So there could be those scenarios. I haven't seen anything online yet, but what do you think about facing the Saints? The Saints are I'm looking at their what is their record? 4-7. Niners are now 6-4. So this is not a good football team. I believe Andy Dalton still the QB here?
He is, yeah.
So Jameis did not play Jameis has not played since September, late September. And so it's Andy Dalton now. Andy Dalton can make a play or two. He can get out of the pocket. He's also going to make some mistakes there. But, he's not – he's a little – I would say he's better than Colt McCoy. But I don't know. They just don't have a ton of weapons offensively. So what are your thoughts here with this game upcoming Sunday at home against Saints?
I think the defense is going to frustrate me in the first half. And then D'Amico Ryans is going to be like, hey, guys, this is Andy Dalton you're playing against. Can you please get it together and shut them out the second half? I'm not going to predict a blowout like we got today because believe it, like the 49ers play down to their competition a lot of times. And I don't know what it was about this crowd in Mexico, but they were just hot for the 49ers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They were like the crowd was on fire. And like that's a 49er stronghold, Mexico City, even though this was technically an away game.
Yes.
So they were all about it. They were hot for it. There's momentum here. I'm not going to predict a blowout, but I am going to predict a smooth victory here for the 49ers. I just don't see that the Saints have any. They're not going to have any answers for this defense, and they're not going to have any answers for the 49ers run game specifically. I just don't see it.
My favorite stats, as folks know by now who listen to this podcast, are net scoring. And so New Orleans, for the year, they are minus 1.6 points per game. So they lose by minus 1.6 points per game on average, more than they score. They give up more than they score. But these last 3 games specifically, they're at almost a -6 per game. Ooh. So that's a little rough. Now, they're not Houston, who's at -11 for the last 3 games. That's where you're getting whooped every game. On the road, New Orleans is cumulatively also a -6 for the whole season. So -6 per game for the whole season. And the Niners at home are a +5. So those numbers are pretty favorable for the Niners there if they take care of business. And so I'm also going to predict a victory. But, I don't know. I think it's because of Drew Brees that I always think that the 49ers are going to have some trouble with the Saints, or at least get screwed with some bad penalty because they actually tackled Drew Brees instead of just let him sit in the pocket and throw. So Shelvin says that David Lombardi from The Athletic reported that there were no injuries, which is great.
Yeah.
And let's hope that nothing shows up on the injury report. They go into this game at full speed. But yeah, this is not the same Saints. So I am still going to be, I still see those jerseys and I'm like, oh, like it's going to give me the heebie-jeebies. But I think they are clearly a better team than the Saints. So it's really just about doing what they're supposed to do at home, coming off a good win and not being hurt, if that is the case. And maybe we get some other guys back, which would be nice.
Yeah. Hopefully Armstead's back. I mean, we've been missing him. We need his presence there in the middle of the line. But who knows how long he's going to be out.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Like, who knows about that injury? Because it's not just one injury; it's 2 injuries. He's got the foot strain or whatever that strain is called, and then he's also got an ankle situation going at the same time. So I don't know. Kyle's famous words every time they ask about players, he's like, "Oh, he's got a chance to play." It's like, yeah,
yeah.
Thanks for telling me that. Thanks for telling me.
You're telling me there's a chance. Yeah.
And Ibukam is dealing with an Achilles and a quadricep injury. So, but he practiced in 2 of the 3 practices, so that I guess that's good. So yeah, it'd be great to see both those guys get back. But Want to
But
thank
you know who
you.
stepped up in the? I'm sorry. You know who stepped up in their absence? I know you're getting ready to wrap up. Was Kevin Givens? I just want to give him a shout out. I
Great.
thought he had a
sack.
good game. Yeah, I thought he had a good game
It
tonight.
was like exploded out of a cannon. Like he just came out of nowhere. I was like, what happened? It's like it's like you hit the R2 on the PlayStation for like the boost, and he just right there for the sack. All right, no, appreciate you coming on. I know you've been wanting to talk Niners, and we'll do this again because I thought it was a lot of fun, and I always love chatting with you. So. So next week, Rod and I will be back Sunday night after the game on I think the Niners play at 1, so around 4:35-ish time frame Pacific on Sunday night. But for Mike, thank you very much for doing this. I am Double G. We will see you next Sunday. Peace out.